Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
You know who I can do without? I can do without the people in the video store.
Which ones?
All of them. They never rent quality flicks. They always pick the most intellectually devoid movie on the racks.
And now, on with the show.
I've been expecting you.
It is the right of the people to provide for the common defense.
Does this rebel army have any money?
It's not enough.
It is the right of the people to promote the general welfare.
This is our annual fundraising drive, and we would like you to contribute $10 million.
It is the right of the people to rise up.
What the f*** do you want?
Money.
Money? You guys sure kill a lot of people for a little money.
It is the right of the people to bear arms, to wage war.
Frank White is a free man.
How come you never came to see me? Who wanted to see you in a cage, man?
He served his time.
What can we expect from the reformed Frank White?
I want to be mayor.
He paid his debt.
Go someplace where you can stay out of trouble.
But some things don't change.
From here on, nothing goes down unless I'm involved. No blackjack, no dope deals, no nothing. I've been waiting years for this.
Greetings, my friends, and welcome to Twig's very own VHS video store. I am one of your video clerks this evening. I am Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as you come through this cavalcade of crap that you've come to expect from us here on the show. It is the year 2023, and we have new old stock to show you. I'm joined by my compatriot from the lovely city of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
Alex, the producer here.
And of course, from the wilds, the far-off wasteland of Michigan, Lansing, Michigan.
Jeez, I'm Aaron.
I'm sorry, Aaron. I have to, I don't know. I actually kind of like Michigan. I actually have a lot of friends there. So, but
I know we're not all bad. We're not all bad.
Wastelands is Jersey, and you know it.
That's true. Sorry,
I don't
Ken.
know. We do have some pretty urban blighted areas in the state. To be fair.
See, Mike. Not everywhere is Detroit.
This is true. You also have places like Flint and Saginaw and Lansing. So
we only know the ones that make the news. That's the problem.
So yes, guys, we are here back on Twig's Loose Cannon. I am back hosting as often as I can be with these two knuckleheads. And on this show, if this is your first time listening to the show, well, aren't you in for a treat? Because tonight we're going to be talking about a double feature of movies featuring one of the impressions that everybody loves to do, because that's just a thing that people do these days. We're going to be talking about Christopher Walken. We're going to be talking about two of his movies that came out in the early 1990s. We're going to be talking about
in that weird era, the post Deer Hunter / like critically acclaimed rise of his career. And before, I guess he became like
the meme
status with the younger generations, which would have been what, maybe after
Pulp Fiction, maybe?
His appearance in Pulp Fiction.
See, when you guys pitched this, I was like, weird Christopher Walken films. You know, we're going to be watching Communion, aren't we? And I'm going to have nightmares forever because there's like one scene in it that really gets under my skin. But
is it the scene when they're sitting in the room and then they have like the weird flashes of the aliens popping up around them?
No, it's the one where the alien peeks around the door in the middle of the night. And God, yeah.
You know, there's a reason I didn't pick that movie, and that's actually it.
Really?
Because my choice, I was like when you say Christopher Walken obscure movies, you go Communion and Brainstorm.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we're not doing those.
So yes, guys. So what we typically do on this show is we try to pick a theme, or we pick an idea. And this one, as we just said, this is weird Christopher Walken movies. Now, for me, my experience with Christopher Walken began in the 1990s, and I first saw him in Pulp Fiction. And then I started to know him for the Fatboy Slim Weapon of Choice video, great. The Disney movie Country Bears, and
wait, you might be one of the only people over the age of, I don't know, 20 that says they know Christopher Walken from Country Bears.
Well, it's just because There's a great meme that circulated in like the late 2000s where Christopher Walken, it's just the way that he shouts at the bears. He's like, "I'm going to get you, bears!" And it's just this weird dramatic pause. It's so strange. And then I think he was in Joe Dirt too. I want to say he's like, "I'm going to stab you."
Oh my God.
Face.
You've seen all the ones that are terrible.
Oh God. Yeah. So it wasn't until Alex, you and I became really close friends in the last couple of years that you showed me the Dead Zone.
Oh, Dead Zone's great.
Well, Dead Zone and Batman Returns are where I saw him first.
Oh, I forgot he was in that as the mayor. Yeah.
No, he's not. He's Max Schreck.
Max Schreck.
Which is named after the guy that played Nosferatu in the original Nosferatu film. The actor's name was Max Schreck.
And by the way, probably the best part of that movie outside of Danny DeVito's performance.
True. Very true. And then I think I saw him in he was in Sleepy Hollow. He was the Headless Horseman, which was very unexpected to me. I didn't see that one coming. And then, I really don't know a lot about the body of his work other than, when he did the hosting gig on Saturday Night Live and everybody would quote, "I got a fever. I got one prescription, blah, blah, blah." Everybody knows that gig. I'm not going to go over it again. And that's all I really knew. And
yeah, well, it's that. And then when he did those multiple skits with them laser cats, that became internet popular.
Guys, you're missing at least the one movie I first saw him in, A View to a Kill.
Oh, I forgot about that too.
Oh yeah, well, and you see, here's the thing: I saw that movie as a kid. I didn't correlate that with him.
Wow.
Because of the bleached hair, and I was a little kid. Like, I didn't know that was him. The first movie that I knew where I saw the name and knew it was him was probably Batman.
Yeah, man. Christopher Walken, Grace Jones is in that film. I mean, I don't know. Lots of memories from it, I guess.
Yeah, so that's where I kind of got into him. So I guess I'll throw things to Alex and then Aaron, and then we'll start talking about McBain.
Okay, well, with I've seen a lot of his movies over the years. There was a period where I would pick a bunch of actors and then I would try to rent every movie that I could find them. Like, I went through a phase where I'm like, I want to watch every movie that has gangsters in it. So that, of course, led me to all the Robert De Niro movies, and then I saw Deer Hunter. And seeing Deer Hunter, I was like, oh, that's the guy from Batman. That's how I associated it, not the whole, here's the Academy Award nominated, or I think, did he win for that movie? He at least got nominated. You see that movie. Once you see that movie, you never see him, the same way again, because that is before Christopher Walken had his iconic way of speaking in films, which it turns out, you'd think he's putting on, a performance, the way he talks. No, that's how he actually talks. He would suppress the way he talked to try to sound more Hollywood normal until one day somebody told him, just be yourself and you'll stand out. So the first movie, if you go through all of the movies he's done, and I've looked and found clips in this, The Dead Zone is the very first movie where the Walkenisms really started to show. And then everything since then, he's been can you think of somebody else that's been in Hollywood, at his level, that has such a unique way of speaking that gets leading roles?
The guy, I'm
Arnold?
Sylvester Stallone?
Well, no, but okay, well,
Arnold's a weird one though.
I don't necessarily count English as a second language as that's, he talks like that. If you hear him speak Austrian or German, he doesn't talk odd. He talks odd when he's speaking English because English is not his first language. Whereas Christopher Walken, it's the cadence of how he says his words, when he says things, when he raises his voice, when he doesn't, how he says it, how quick and slow. He's such a mesmerizing person.
Anthony Hopkins maybe has a bit of a weird cadence to his voice, maybe.
That's British, and you have problems with accents.
That's true, and I don't deny that.
Michael, that's wherever you won.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
But still, these films, when I was I was putting them together, and I was trying to. This is the year of, us all pitching different ideas for things. My ideas and all the episodes that I'm picking for the show are going to be weird, obscure, for the most part, 80s and 90s action movies, and they're going to be somewhat paired together, either based on a similar sounding name or a similar actor. And I picked these because they both had Christopher Walken, not realizing that there's a couple actors that cross over into both films. The guy who plays the president in McBain is actually, or not the American president, the guy who plays the villain president, El Presidente, is the same actor that plays the detective that's coming after Christopher Walken in The King of New York.
Oh,
so and they filmed those movies back to back, I guess. So that's interesting and funny, but there's a lot of other interesting things with both of these before we get into them individually, in that they both have a lot of actors that but also that the fact that we probably hadn't seen these movies is interesting, that I had never even really heard of McBain until I think I saw a VHS of another action movie that happened to have a trailer for it. And I was like, what is this? And that always stuck in the back of my mind. And even to this day, it's on Blu-ray. Most people don't know this movie exists at all. Whereas King of New York, people have heard of.
Yeah.
Because there's some memorable scenes. Like, even if you've never seen it, you've probably heard of the movie or seen a couple of the iconic posters or like stills from it. Like there's a still of him sort of looking through the window, or there's quotes that people have done or said that you don't realize are actually associated with the movie. It's probably most known for being like the breakout movie role for David Caruso, and I think it was the reason he left NYPD Blue, which we saw how that worked out. His movie career didn't really make it, and he had to go back to TV. But it's this weird period too, where I feel like we've seen a lot of action movies that are like from A-list actors that came out in the 80s, like all the way up to like 1988 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the 90s, we had the big movie stars or the big action stars. But this was a weird period, like the very late 80s to very, very early 90s, where people that weren't traditionally action stars were getting action movies. Like, who would have thought Christopher Walken would have been in a Vietnam action movie or a post-Vietnam action movie?
Yeah, it just references Vietnam a lot, yeah.
But like you watch this and you're like, this is a Bruce Willis movie, or this is a Chuck Norris movie, or this is something Arnold might have done.
Yeah, this felt like, well, I mean, McBain felt a bit like a really good canon film.
Yeah, and that's something that, while I was watching it, this is the type of movie that would perfectly sit on a shelf in its era, so the 1990s, early 1990s, direct to video by Canon or Carlico or any of those companies, that is perfectly fine. It's not exceptional. It's not bad.
Except it got like 3 times the budget a Canon movie would have got.
Yeah, like it was weirdly good in some sequences.
Yeah, so I guess we should probably get the last thing I'll say background before we get into the movie itself is we have it's a returning director from a few of the previous episodes we've done. Same director as The Protector. That was the Jackie Chan, Danny Aiello movie we watched.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Also the same director that did Shakedown. That was the one, Mike, with RoboCop in it.
Oh yeah, that movie was great.
So this is one. He didn't direct that many films. He produced a bunch of others, but this is, as far as I can tell, the second last action movie he did. His last action movie, Slaughter of the Innocents, we're going to probably end up watching on the show eventually too. But like, he has a unique style that Aaron and I were sort of discussing off air before.
Yeah.
That what I was trying to pin down was, it's basically like, what if you got a really low budget, like Grindhouse director and gave them a high budget, and that's the way the action, like the logic and how the plot moves and how things are put together. He has like very like loose like loose connection with logic, but it still somehow works, and that's seems to be his trademark. So that's all I'll say on that director in particular.
Yeah, like it's very tropey, it's very paint by numbers, but it okay, I'm gonna say, I don't know whether this is a hot take or a stupid take. It never insults your intelligence. You're like, yeah, all right, fine. Like it's weirdly fine where you just go along with it, and that's
don't like it doesn't want you to sit there and think about it. It wants you to feel as it moves.
Yeah, like it wants to keep the action going. The characters don't make a whole lot of sense. Some of them are weirdly miscast. Actually, it was funny. I was listening to the riff tracks for this movie, and there's the one black guy, and there's a scene where they all get together at one of the beach houses, and he's standing at the top of the stairs like, oh yeah, I forgot I'm not Carl Weathers. And that scene just killed me.
Is that Steve James?
I think
it's Steve James.
Yeah.
It's Steve James. Which is one of the unsung, or actually sung, heroes of B movies from the 80s, right?
Yeah. I mean, I recognize almost all the main actors in this, so I mean,
yeah, like it's Christopher Walken, Michael Ironside, as a, I guess, Steve Jobs-esque billionaire who happened to be a Vietnam vet with them.
Yeah, and he's just along for the ride because I guess it's more exciting than sitting in his beach house with his beautiful, like, live-in girlfriend.
He's bored.
Yeah.
He's bored, so he's going to wage war against Colombia.
Because why not, right? Because he has 3 Ferraris, a beautiful wife, and a huge barbecue for some reason.
And what appears to be a cheap plastic television antenna that's supposed to be a satellite computer.
Yes. I was like, and this was picked up by a spy satellite from Russia. Like, what the fuck?
With the right software, I could intercept anything.
Oh no, it's oh god, what's the writer, director, producer, actor? He produces those crap movies out of Las Vegas. Why can't I pull his name out of my head?
Out of Las Vegas?
Yeah. Breen, Neil Breen.
No,
Thank you, darling. Darling
Neil
yelled at me from the other room. Neil Breen.
who I told you should probably direct a sequel to Rocket Attack USA.
Yeah. But Neil Breen, like how he does in his films, like he just has a random laptop with like a coat hanger sticking out of it. He's like, from here I can hack the entire U.S. defense network. You know.
Exactly. Maria Conchita Alonso, who you'd probably know best from Running Man.
Running Man, yeah, that's where I know her from.
And isn't she also in Leviathan? Or is it The Deep or
Deep Star 6 or whatever? No,
something. She's in she's one of those like late 80s actresses that was in a ton of stuff. Colors, Running Man, Vampire Kiss, Predator 2.
Oh yeah, that's right.
A ton of stuff. She's in it. I'm trying to think of the one friend, the one that looked like an accountant. I couldn't pinpoint what he's been in, but it's a million things. Like just every scene in this movie seems odd. Like it's just put together. Like basic plot is back in Vietnam, the war is apparently over in 1973. And by over, it means America says it's over, but it's not really over. And this group of people are leaving, and then they see what they think is or might be a POW camp. So they're going to stay and liberate the POW camp, and they liberate. They end up liberating Christopher Walken from, I guess, a
Thunderdome.
battle to the Thunderdome battle to the death with. Kmart Bolo. I was like, oh, it's like a Vietnamese version of Bolo from Bloodsport. And there's like a Vietnamese general who has, of course, a necklace made out of ears of all of the I guess POW people he's killed.
Yeah,
and the knife,
as one does, right?
Or like,
and the knife has a notch in it for ear cutting.
I honestly didn't know if I should have been offended or thought it was like
weirdly funny.
This is a really good take on, terrible Vietnamese, war crimes. To me, it just kind of seemed ridiculous. But
and it's not just like the Thunderdome. The reason we're laughing is all of the Vietnamese soldiers are climbing on the sides and rattling the cage.
Yeah, it's Thunderdome. Like it really is Thunderdome.
And Steve James and all the gang show up. Oh, by the way, did you catch the song, the opening intro song?
Who sung that?
It was a cover version of Dire Straits' Brothers in Arms.
Okay.
Huh. All right.
You know what's strange about this? And I know people made fun of this on the riff tracks pretty hard. Is it weird to say that I really liked the music in this?
I liked it too.
Yeah, like it's weird. It really seemed to fit that late 80s, 90s aesthetic. And I really liked it.
It was very, very appropriate to me. I'll get into it when all of you guys are done, but to me, it was perfectly appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens is they liberate Chris Walken and a couple other people. They didn't want to really step down there and do it, but the one guy, what was his name? He dies. Roberto Santos. I guess he's not American, but he was fighting in the American army.
That happened every now and then. They're like foreign volunteers in order to get their U.S. citizenship. Yeah.
I get. Okay, yeah, and I can see that. I mean, we have that now. We have volunteers going over to Europe right now, even from Canada. So, yeah. So I guess that makes sense. But he's the guy who's like the Santos character. He goes, you know what? Do you want to go back and then not know whether or not you left people behind? So Christopher Walken's like, and if you ever need me anytime, what can I do for you? And he grabs $100 bill, rips it in half, and says, if you ever receive this, then you'll know I need your help.
Mm-hmm.
And we fast forward 18 years to the modern day, and Santos talks to his sister, who's played by Maria, and you realize that he's trying to liberate Colombia from its dictator / drug lord connected president.
Mm-hmm.
And how they do it is without really any backup or forethought.
Yeah, there is no planning to this. They're
in a limousine, and they bring a couple of the freedom fighters dressed up as women of the night, and they're like, a present from from the drug lord for El Presidente. Go right on in. They drive the limousine in, and don't you miss the era when the trunk was big enough you could fit 4 people and all of their guns in it?
The joke. Have you ever seen there's a movie called, I think it's Dirty Deeds.
Maybe.
And there's a scene in it where they're trying to rip off. Well, they're not trying to rip. They're trying to get revenge on this used car salesman. So they hire a whole bunch of prostitutes to go into the trunks of the cars.
Oh! That's the Norm Macdonald movie.
Yeah.
Dirty Work.
Yeah, Dirty Work. There you go. And they're like,
my God! There's a dead hooker in that.
There's a dead hooker in that trunk. I've never seen so many dead hookers. Lord knows I have.
The one guy. Lord knows I have.
Yeah. So the joke is that when Darlene and I went out and looked for a car, we
were looking for dead
hookers.
hookers.
That's a 3 dead hooker trunk there.
That's the one where Chris Farley is missing his nose because a Saigon hooker bit it off.
Yeah.
and then he's there and he sees one of the dead hookers in the truck, and it's her.
Yeah.
He goes, that's the whore that bit my nose. And then later on in the movie, he goes, we're getting married.
Yeah.
And they get in the car and drive away, and she's, come on. He goes, shut your yap, and he's ready to hit her. And then as they're driving away, she bites his nose off again.
Yeah.
That movie's underrated.
Yeah, it's not good, but it's funny.
Oh,
it's memorable.
It's one of only 2 movies he starred in. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 4 people get out of that trunk, and I was like, 4 people got out of that.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's got to be, like, in my head, I'm like, oh, did they rig it up? And then I look, I'm like, no, they didn't tear the upholstery. That's just how big the trunks were.
Yeah.
So 4 people get out of the trunk. and they go inside with very little effort, basically capture the president's offices and his palace, and then the military rolls in, and we cut away. We're like, oh, so is he going to call for help? And it cuts to America, where Christopher Walken's working as a welder on, like, I think he's working on bridges and stuff, and he's in the bar.
He's on the Brooklyn Bridge. He's on the Brooklyn Bridge right at the beginning. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. And he's having a drink and having some lunch, and he's watching on TV. And this is how you know it's a Glickenhaus movie, and it's from a guy who's like just doesn't give a fuck about reality. And in 1991 America, on like what is presumably like ABC television, they're like, we're bringing you live or scenes from the president's office in Columbia, and it's viewer discretion is advised because there's graphic content. And the president just pulls out like a gun and blasts a hole in the side of Santos's head and sprays brain matter all over the side of the building in front. And it's like, we just broadcast that to 300 million Americans.
Yeah. And Walken doesn't even blink. Like he looks at
it and he's like, oh, my friend's gone.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's a shame.
And this is after the this was that was shortly before this, the president is called into an emergency meeting, and he's like, they're finding out like the CIA is can't give them any more information. Who made this promise? We're not going to help. Blah 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 blah. And it's building up to the fact that the entire plan of these rebels was somebody in the CIA told them if they do this, America will send help.
Does that matter to the plot later?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not really, because the president only appears at the very like 3/4 of the way through, and it's just to declare that their solution to stopping, and they don't even say that it's the solution. They just explain this plan that he's doing, but they don't say why he's doing the plan. But I guess you're inferring that to stop the Contra money, drug money coming in and all this, they're going to change every American bill to be red, white, and blue.
Yeah, I was confused as hell.
That makes no sense. It makes no sense.
So and the idea is you can go to the bank and trade in your green money dollar for dollar for the new money, for the red, white, and blue money. But I guess what they're trying to infer is that the red, white, and blue money can't go to other countries.
But it can. And remember, he also said, this stuck with me. He also said, we're only going to print this for a year, meaning that the old money is still legal tender.
Yeah.
None of that makes sense.
I thought like it would only make sense if they did what we were doing here, which is all of our money switched to a plastic polymer of different colors. You've probably touched it and used it, right? Like
I've never touched a Canadian bill. I've only touched coins.
Okay, well, next time you come up here, if you get our bills, they are plastic, like real, like plastic. Like you can throw them in the washing machine and everything.
Oh wow!
And they smell of maple syrup. Serious, dead serious.
That's the 50s.
Yeah,
they made scratch and sniff 50s.
Not scratch sniff. They just smell of maple syrup.
I am both horrified and intrigued.
It was a rumor, and then the government said that it's not. It's 100%, every single one of them, but none of the other bills. Every other bill smells like nothing. The $50 bill smells like maple syrup. So
wow,
they're lying. It's one of the security features. So, and there's all these holographic stuff in it, and it's actually our money's been shown at like in a bunch of different countries. Australia copied it too, and if you not copied our money directly, but copied the idea, our money is knock on wood, they're saying that it's basically you can't counterfeit it because of how many security features are built in.
And that just don't say that because that's just a challenge.
Well, sorry. Not that it can't be. It's not cost effective.
So if you were to counterfeit American money, what would the signature American smell be?
Cocaine.
Cocaine, apple pie, and Cheetos. What?
Well, no. The funny thing is, back in the 80s, they constantly tested bills, and they found that almost every single bill had trace amounts of cocaine on it.
Well, our money you can put through the washing machine, so you could just roll it up, snort your cocaine, and
what you're saying is that Canadians are expert money launderers.
Pretty much. Yeah. Wow. But anyway, that aside, like how we did it here was they started introducing those bills, and then bills older than a certain age were taken in and destroyed. And the idea is we're at a point now where I think like 99% of our bills in circulation are the new bills. And since then, counterfeiting has basically stopped entirely. Okay. So it's like, and even like drug money, and that it's a little, it would be easier to trace because they're not likely to have their hands on as much as whatever. But like, if that was what they were trying to do in the movie, I'd understand it, but you'd have to take every bill in circulation and destroy it, but they're not doing that.
Yeah. And it's only going to be for a year. And then the other bills
what was the point of, and also what was the point of the red, white, and blue bills?
There wasn't any in the end.
Patriotism.
They didn't even say what it was for. He just says he's doing this, and it's like, for what? So obviously some stuff was cut from this movie. Mm-hmm. But like he says that's the only time the president's there. The president doesn't ever back them up again. So anyway, Maria shows up with the bill. He's like, I've been expecting you. And 2 minutes later, apparently she loves him.
Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. Okay. And they try to get Michael Ironside to fund their war because he's rich, and he's like, no. Yeah, and then it's also never explained why he decides to join them. Like, he joins them. Okay, wait. They decide, here's where it gets interesting. Their solution is he's not going to give us money, so we're going to take some of the drug money. And by take drug money, it's kill all the low-end drug dealers and steal whatever money they have on them.
Yeah, they kind of went full vigilante. Oh yeah, real fast.
And that set was so interesting. That dilapidated house.
Yeah,
which was kind of a really cool action scene. Like, there's one scene where they kill a guy. He flies out like a 3rd or 4th story window. It's almost out of something out of Death Wish 4. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, that was the feel. Like, this is where it turned into a canon movie.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And like they go into the house, and like they're not even going to rob them. They're there to kill them.
Isn't that Luis Guzman?
It is.
Yes. In one of his first big roles, or big on-screen talking roles. They don't kill him, but they show up and murder people, and they blast through the doors. Like, it was such a weird looking set. And there's a couple interesting deaths in there, and his response is like, I make $375 an hour. And then I pay he was being very pragmatic. He's like, I give them $200 a day. It's just enough for them to get by. He goes, if you really want to go after, you got to go after the mob, who's the guys that are basically bringing the money or bringing the drugs in for them to distribute.
Yeah, he's like, dude, you just killed 2 dudes that get paid $200 a day because they would never be able to get work anywhere else to make the kind of money to support their families. Thanks a lot, you murdering assholes. Now, if you want to kill me, go ahead, but I'm small fry. Yeah, I'm bigger than the poor minimum wage schlubs you just gunned down mercilessly.
And then
like he's making like $3 or $4 grand a day, but that's it. But did you like what I loved about this? This is the memorable scene I was going to say. How they were dealing their drugs and how they were collecting their money
with a paint bucket?
a paint bucket through a pulley system. They pull up 3 stories.
It's so random. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And then in that same scene, there are 2 memorable lines that really caught my attention. Luis Guzman is explaining, these kids get paid $3.75 an hour to work at Burger King. Yeah. They're like, the fuck? He goes on a 2-minute rant about Burger King, and then where'd you get that?
This is after they killed 6 people.
Yeah, and then Christopher Walken walks up to Luis Guzman's character, and he goes, "Where did you get that jacket, tough guy? Same place you got it." The fuck does that mean?
Yeah, he goes, same place you got it, motherfucker. That's what he says. And it's supposed to mean that he got it in the army just like he did.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I didn't know what that meant.
Shirt. It's an army shirt.
Okay. So that's why he doesn't have to die.
And this is why you need an American like me on the show.
Yes, exactly. So. Well, and then so what do? they commandeer a New Jersey garbage truck because the mob runs the.
No. Hold on. You missed the fact that they steal a dead man's hat and sunglasses.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's right. For no reason other than they like them.
And our heroes, ladies and gentlemen.
They steal like a sanitation garbage truck because mob association. Crash into the mob as in the middle of the city as they're leaving, like a hotel restaurant or something, and and hang the guy from a crane from the top of a building, suspended on a chair, basically hung up there, like at any moment he could die. And he has the balls to say, "Do you know who I am? You know how powerful I am?" And he's hanging from there, and they just leave him there.
Yeah, but remember, they pretend to be Mossad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, with Christopher Walken doing his best worst accent of all time.
Oh yeah,
his Israeli accent. Yeah.
which was amazing. So that's probably one of the most memorable scenes in the movie.
Yeah, actually it is.
Yeah, and so Chris Walken and his goon squad completely bullshit this guy. Like, do you know who we are? And it's like, oh yeah, and we killed these guys and 3 generations back. And the guy who's hanging from the roof is like, oh, I don't fuck with you with like you. I don't want to say this, but you Jew people, I'm cool with like you guys, right? and they're like, yeah, all right, but don't tell us. And all, like, it's so weird, but the way that he plays it, it's so hysterical.
Well, they don't actually show if they got the money from him.
Yeah.
Well, they must have. They must
have. So they get their money, and after they get their money, then Michael Ironside shows up with his own money anyway.
Yeah, so none of it mattered.
So they made $10 million for fun.
The $10 million basically gave them the guns to somehow they got the money to the rebels to get guns. And then Michael Ironside volunteers his time and somehow knows an off-duty army pilot or like Air Force pilot that has, or either he owns a jet his own, or he's got some guy who's just going to go AWOL from the military to fly with them.
Don't they mention like the 101st, which is an Army airborne unit?
Hell from above.
Like this wasn't a guy who's a vet. Like this guy's like 24, so like he's in the military, and he just goes AWOL because a rich guy offers him a jet.
It's because he says, "Son, what unit was your father in?" 101st, sir.
Oh, 101st. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
And then he's like, okay. "Oh yeah, death from above." Yeah, and he's like, "That's right, sir, death from above." And then like it's what?
So they're flying in, and the idea is that the rebels have to clear the airspace for them, which has a couple crazy scenes. There's some good shooting and stabbing stuff. One guy gets hung, which is pretty cool the way it's shown. And then one of the people from the village that Maria's from decides to go full like kamikaze bomber by throwing a grenade inside of a tank, but he stands there and waits to hear the grenade roll down the tank's cannon. And then it blows up. And when it blows up, I was like, "Oh, that's a cool effect," because it blew up, and they left the dummy there to be torched and hung from the side of the tank.
Well, they did that a few times in the movie. Like there was bodies burning in like a watchtower.
Yeah,
and I was like, "This is really horrific."
Oh yeah,
I know. But she's just like, and she's crying, "No!" And then 2 seconds later, they're landing their plane, and she's like, "We're all happy again. We're here." But while they're trying to land, they send up. There's fighter jets coming after them, which they avoid. That has some of the most hilarious looking composited missiles shooting. Like it was clearly two things they composited together.
It's super NES Top Gun. Yeah.
Yeah, they land. The young fighter pilot who doesn't have any connection. Like all they would have had to say is that like he was the son of one of the guys that they served with. But they didn't do that.
I feel bad because that guy is getting court-martialed at some point and probably never seen the light of day again.
Exactly. And he's like, they're like, you should get home. It's going to get dangerous. You got to get out of here before. Like it was implied that he's got to get back before he gets in trouble.
Dude, you stole a plane.
Yeah, I know. He's like, or was that plane owned by Michael Ironside?
I think they stole it or something, didn't they?
Because because it was Red 1, Red 2, whatever, and like that propeller plane that was his.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming he bought a jet. Like, they asked for $10 million, and he was like, no. But then he shows up with like $100 million worth of military equipment.
Yeah, no, I think that was a U.S. military jet.
Okay, so they steal that, or he gets this connections to whatever. He lands, and they're like, there's not enough fuel to go back. I want to stay. They're like, okay. And then he ends up sacrificing himself, and they don't even like acknowledge it later on in the movie at all at the end.
Now, there's one part just before they land, which I thought this was really, 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 really funny. So the Colombian Air Force is trying to force this plane down in the cockpit. So in the cockpit of the propeller plane, they hold up the radio and they dangle it by the wire, like as if to say, we can't hear you, the radio's dead. And then the pilot in the Colombian jet's like, no, I know you can hear me. Land this plane right now. Christopher Walken pulls out a gun, shoots in front of his pilot's face. Oh, so now he's deaf and blind. Shoots the other pilot, and that plane crashes.
Shoots through their own canopy windshield into them. No depressurization at their height.
No, that's fine. The depressurization thing, that's fine, because you're in a prop plane. You're generally not.
But he shoots it. Wouldn't the bullet have flown right behind them? Like, wouldn't the drop off have been so bad? Because like, he's not firing a high velocity rifle.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, you would have had a massive velocity fall off because of going through your plane's plexiglass, bird resistant, windshield. But then you're going to go through the bullet resistant windscreen of the fighter jet with a handgun's bullet, which is also now tumbling slow and suddenly in a very fast airstream. So no, you're not hitting what you're firing at.
And no wind like hiss sound effect happens. You don't even hear the glass breaking when he shoots.
No, but it's so accurate. It goes like straight through the guy's freaking head.
Completely like paint splatter all over the inside of his cockpit, and he spirals down, hits the ground, and they all go, yeah.
Yes. This movie, man.
and then they I found like there's funny little moments too, like they have the like Stinger missile rocket launchers.
That was a great scene. I love that.
And they have and they're like because these are old non-vets who wouldn't have had that tech, and they're trying to figure out how it works, and they're like, it's not turned on, and they have to quickly turn it on, and they both fire, and perfect shots.
Yeah.
Kill them both, and they use those a few times in the movie near the end there. But they show up at the El Presidente's palace. They end up taking over. Even some of the soldiers are like mutinying against their own people. Some crazy shooting stuff happens. They go in. El Presidente is ready to kill himself or shoot other people that come in with like a dirty hairy gun, and instead of like you're like, okay, is Christopher Walken, are they going to storm in through the front? Or he blows a hole somehow through the floor and jumps in and knows exactly where El Presidente is and shoots him while his head isn't even through the floor yet. He drops in like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Last Action Hero, blasts him and kills him, walks out to the balcony, waves to Maria, and that's the end of the movie.
Now there is one moment when Christopher Walken and the rest of the guys are storming the palace. Christopher Walken, he's firing his gun. He comes up to a staircase, and it's like this gunner's nest, and he just casually throws a grenade like he's throwing a piece of trash into a garbage can, blows up, Mexican jumping grenade, blows a guy out of there, and he's like, well, I guess this gun's out of bullets, and grabs another one and just keeps on trucking.
And this is 2 seconds after that kid decides to sacrifice himself, and they don't even acknowledge it.
Oh yeah, like this is the most Call of Duty ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Oh, no, hold on, guys. This is The Untouchables before The Untouchables.
Oh yeah,
because it has a lot of like big name actors from the time, but it's still too close to like the 80s action films to have 80s action film stars. Like the only thing that this would have, if it truly was The Untouchables from like 1991, it would have like some action people from like the 70s.
Oh, you mean like the Expendables?
Yeah, the Expendables. I'm sorry, not the Untouchables. Jeez, that's the mob movie. Yeah, no, the Expendables.
It's missing like Bo Svensson and you know what? You know what this is? This is the Expendables, but like, what if like Steve McQueen hadn't died?
Yeah. This is Steve McQueen Expendables. Yeah,
Steve McQueen. It's missing. It's Dirty Dozen was the Expendables in the '60s, but like if this was like late '70s, early '80s, Steve McQueen, like Ryan O'Neal. You could have had Bo Svensson. You could have had who else from there? Like even Elliot Gould used to make movies like that.
Yeah.
You could have had a whole bunch of those guys in there, but yeah, like seriously, you could have.
Burt Reynolds would have been good in it too.
Oh yeah. You could have taken like Tom Skerritt would have shown up in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could have picked up Christopher Walken, cut him out of the movie, and if you put Steve McQueen in, I would have believed it was the same movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's two little parts and there's two little details that I thought was funny. One, when they're at the beach house and they're waking up from their hangover, where they never showed them actually partying or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And they had their drinking competition where they drank like 30 some odd beers or whatever. There's a part where that's the part where Steve James walks down the stairs and you were laughing, Michael.
Yeah, because he's not Carl Weathers.
It's not that. It's the guy, not the nerdy dude that looks like the lawyer or the accountant. The other guy,
the fat guy.
He wakes up. He wakes up on the couch. He gets up and slips on the pizza box
and does the split.
And that's a real, like, you could tell that wasn't scripted because the nerdy guy starts laughing and like real laughing. He actually like snicker laughs and he catches himself, and they just kept it in because it was clear. Like he goes to stand up and the way he does the splits, I will bet you that off the microphone because the boom wasn't pointed at him. I'll bet you he just went, "Oh fuck," and the other guy starts laughing. That, and when they go outside in that same scene, I was like, "What the hell? This is so like odd movements. Like usually things are scripted, and the director, they'll want you to move like this, talk like this, but like Steve James sits down and then puts one of his legs with his sock on top of the table right in front of the other guy.
Yeah,
and it's like that's an odd thing to do." Not both his feet up, just one leg with his sock pointing towards the other guy's face.
Yeah.
And then Steve James like disappears for like 20 minutes of the movie.
I mean, I guess in conclusion, McBain, it's one of those movies where I honestly think it's worth watching once, and the riff tracks is just as good.
This is a rental. Like if you are going to have a pizza party with your friends and have a few drinks, this is one of those you can throw on and go, "Oh my God." Like it's not boring. It's not great, but you will laugh. Like this is the kind of one where you're like, yeah, it's time to kill him. Like it's kind of like the best of the ridiculous canon movies. It's kind of like that, only it's surprisingly not a canon picture.
Yeah. I had one thing to say before we started recording about both of these movies, and I think now that we're kind of in between them or wrapping up the first one, I can kind of say this. I think both of these movies that we're going to be talking about today were very well made, well acted, well produced, but weren't very inspired.
Yeah,
so a lot of
the scripts weren't great, obviously, and the execution. Actually, if you had a different script, these would be much higher tiered.
Yeah. So I watched these like a couple days ago, and most of the movie, like when you're talking about it, yeah, I remember that scene, but before we really started talking about it, it's like I remember 2 scenes from McBain very clearly, and it's not because it's a bad movie at all. It's just that it is movie, if you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, and that's well probably done. Why we never heard of these. Like, had you ever heard of McBain before?
No. The only reason I heard of McBain is because of the cultural weirdness around The Simpsons. People thought this was based upon I'd heard this for years that The Simpsons was a riff on this, but no, this predated The Simpsons gag by a couple years.
Well, yeah, no, of course, no, but The Simpsons gag. It is kind of. It's just the only difference is it's the Simpsons McBain thing with Rainier Wolfcastle. Like
that's an Arnie riff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a few things. One, and if you don't know, over the course of it was a few years actually, they would show a few different clips on TV of that movie, and people have taken the clips out of the DVDs and put them in sequential order, and it tells a whole movie and you can see that on YouTube. But what they did was, it was a riff on Lethal Weapon mixed with kind of this plot, because he's going after Mendoza, who's the drug lord politician. So it's not the president. It's basically the same idea.
Yeah.
So it's literally, what if you took Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, and mixed it with this movie?
Yeah.
And it had the name McBain. But it wasn't. I don't think the Simpsons people did that intentionally. It just ended up being that because this is generic late 80s action movie.
I mean, this movie's worst crime, I think it has two worst crimes against it. The fact that, as Aaron just said, it is movie. Its worst thing that you can say about it is it's fine. And the name McBain is almost nonsensical. Like you guys were saying, this is almost like Steve McQueen's Expendables. You could have called this movie anything else. McBain doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, other than the fact that he's the lead guy of this group of old Vietnam War buddies. I mean, like, you could have called this movie One More Time, or
you could have done something with the dollar bill.
Yeah.
Like, it's $100 bill, but you could have done it like
$100 bet or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
$100 debt.
Or even dollar split or something like that. Or you could have had something to do, like, you wouldn't necessarily want to have the generic, war name like Left Behind or like Lone Wolf or some weird name like that. But you could have done something with that, or maybe, I don't know. You could have done something like, liberation, freedom. You could have done something with it, but McBain. Like, the only, when you hear that title, it kind of evokes something like an Arnold movie.
Yeah. And that's totally what I was expecting. I got that kind of. I got the great value version of the Expendables. Not bad, not great, tastes fine, but that's about it. So the next movie we're going to be talking about is completely different. And this is where Christopher Walken is not the action hero with a couple one-liners. Here, he's a crime lord with one-liners and a weird dance sequence at one point.
He's the king of New York.
And this movie is packed full of people just before they got big. Like,
Lawrence Fishburne is in this.
He steals every scene that he's in.
Absolutely. I actually think he's the best part of this movie.
Him, David Caruso, Wesley Snipes in a very young role, Giancarlo Esposito.
I don't know if Wesley Snipes even talks in this.
Oh, yeah, he does. He's the other cop.
That's a couple scenes. That's right. But it's like to the point where he was, I don't even know. I think he had already filmed a movie or two, but I don't know if they had come out yet.
No, he didn't break out big until like after 1992. I think it was after White Men Can't Jump that his career exploded.
No, it was the one he did in the plane.
Passenger 57?
I think it was that one, or
was he in New Jack City, or am I thinking of somebody else?
He's New Jack City.
Okay.
But that, I think it was because he had like an explosive period right around then. But Wesley Snipes was like not unrecognizable, but like he's such a big personality that at the time, it was weird seeing him not be that big, if that makes any sense.
He was more subdued. He was a cop, and he wasn't.
I just looked at his history. He had a couple cameo roles. He was in Major League, small part.
Yeah.
But this was his first sort of like theatrical bigger movie, and because right after this he did New Jack City a year later.
Okay, yeah.
And then it was Passenger 57 and White Men Can't Jump and Boiling Point were all within like a 10-month period.
Yeah. So this movie, when I went into this, I didn't quite know what to expect. I would call this Christopher Walken trying to do The Godfather meets Scarface, and he's kind of successful. I kind of like this movie, but I like the secondary cast more than I like him in it.
Don't forget Steve Buscemi is in this.
As test tube.
I'm trying to think of anybody else. Some of the supporting actors that played like mobsters and that, you'll actually notice they ended up being in like The Sopranos later on.
Yeah. I think I said this right when I first saw it to you, that my take on this is this movie, for a movie that it has a lot of ultra violence in it, was strangely relaxing while watching it. Like, for whatever reason, I was really mellowed by the film.
Was it the like party hip hop music that was in it, and the dance jazz stuff?
I think it's the jazzy stuff, but also like the pacing of the scenes. Unless there's somebody getting blown away in the face or pissing on the ground in front of somebody, it's
which was weird.
It just takes its time to like have a shot linger and tell a story visually, which I appreciate. I really appreciate that.
Real like. What you can say about this movie, I think it had like a $5 million budget. It looks more expensive than it cost.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is for the time period. Like, I was worried, a lot of movies from the early 90s had really bad film grain. This doesn't have that much. I saw this, I think I bought this on DVD like 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
When I originally saw it, when I was going through the whole Chris Walken phase and I wanted to see more gangster stuff. And I liked other movies that the same director had made. And I went, you know what? I'll watch this. I've heard some good things. I saw some of the supporting cast, and I went, okay, this has some of the best cinematography for dark lit scenes. Like, there's a lot of like lighting and neon and stuff, but it's never so dark you can't make out what's happening. They made very good use of shooting at nighttime. And they don't fall into the tropes of doing day for night stuff. If it's dark, it's dark. If it's everything is either naturally lit or they didn't use a lot of like focused lights behind the camera. It's whatever's lighting the people that's what's lighting them.
The one thing that I found really kind of cool about this, now this comes from Wikipedia, according to Abdul Ferrara, and I'm just going to read this line for line. Then owner Donald Trump gave him permission to film at the Plaza Hotel at no charge on one condition, that Walken would pose for a photograph with Ivana Trump, who is a huge fan of the actor. Now, some of the filming locations for this movie, as Alex said, because this movie looks way more expensive than what it was Sing Sing the prison, the Plaza Hotel, Times Square, and the 42nd Street Port Authority bus terminal, Williamsburg, Queensboro Bridge, the Fifth Avenue Ossing, and finally Saranac Lake. Now, speaking of Alex and lighting, there is one scene right towards the end. It's right towards the climactic car chase / gun battle. There's a scene where there's light coming down from one of the bridges onto the street. Whoever lit that shot looks frigging awesome on Blu-ray.
I'll tell you one thing about Abel Ferrara, the director. Mm-hmm. He's not known for getting permits. He would do things guerrilla style.
Ooh.
I'm willing to bet 90% of this movie they didn't have any New York permits and he just shot it. I just got one or two shots and one and done. Like, similar to when we saw, remember we did Alphabet City?
Yeah.
Like, that was the same sort, very guerrilla style, right? Like, it's one of those things where I don't know if you could do it anymore the way he did it for that cheap, because you find ways or like when I say, or maybe he had a permit, but the permit was he walked up to the beat cop and handed him a 50 and they just shot the scene. That sort of stuff.
Yeah, that stuff happens way more often than you think.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And especially in the 80s, like the 80s and 90s in New York.
Darlene and I just,
a lot more.
We just watched a movie and I told you guys that I highly recommended it. I'm not going to say exactly which one, because this will come out before our movie review for what I'm going to talk about. But there's a scene where they need to get a shot of the Golden Gate Bridge with nobody on it. So they paid the guards on each end $500 to stop the traffic going across the Golden Gate Bridge for 1 minute.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this is 1959, so that's an equivalent of $5,000 today.
And for 1 minute and no more, right? Because then if their bosses go, what happened? It'd be like, oh, don't worry, it was just a bit, like you could explain away a minute.
Yeah, you can explain away a minute, and they got their shot, and it looks amazing. It really looks amazing.
That's really cool.
So that's the sort of stuff that it's a lot harder to do now, but you could still do that in the late 80s and early 90s. So the basic plot is Frank White is drug lord, was in prison. They don't say what he was in for, but it's assumed it was murder.
Oh no! It's not murder.
Isn't it? No,
it was drugs or something, wasn't it?
It was trafficking.
It was trafficking because he was only in for like 7 years, 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, and he has a high-powered attorney get him out, who is also one of his lovers, and he gets out, and you realize that he is somehow like, this is going to sound bad, but he's king of the black people. The guy named Frank White, the whitest man on the planet, is king of all the black drug dealers.
Well, it's because he's the only one that respects.
Yeah,
respect, regardless of the color of their skin.
Yeah. That's explained. But at the beginning, you're like, what is going on? Because you're like, this doesn't make any sense. He shows up, and actually, he gets out, and what happens immediately is Lawrence Fishburne's character,
Jimmy
and
Jump,
a few others, they start offing rivals.
Yep.
That are on what used to be Frank's turf. And Frank shows up, does his wacky little dance with them, and it's like what? It's like clubhouse kind of antics, and then they have a big party, and you see these. He's going to hone in on all of the Italians that have been, taking up his turf, and he wants to have a sit down meeting with them, and they're like, basically, no, fuck off. We don't want anything to do with them, because he's in charge of all the black people, and they see them as lessers and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So Frank shows up, and the guy's like bad mouthing. So he just murders one of the, like, not even a captain. He might even be the head of one of the families. Just murders him right there in front of everybody else. He's like, talks to his soldiers. He's like, if any of you are getting sick of being ripped off, come work for me. I'm at the Plaza Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a scene, Alex, that made me think of something. So I did a little digging. When he says, if you want some money, come work for me, right? There's a scene where Christopher Walken and his date get mugged in the subway.
Oh, yeah, that scene. That's a memorable scene.
And he in the guy shows Chris Walken shows the mugger his handgun in his pants, and instead of shooting him, he throws him this gigantic wad of cash and says, if you're looking for employment, come to the Plaza Hotel and ask for Frank White. I'll give you a job. Now, I thought that actor looked familiar.
It's Chris Rock, right?
No, actually, it's a guy named Harold Perot or something like that. That's Link from The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions, which means
shit.
Yeah, so this movie has 2 Matrix alumni in it, which I thought that was really cool.
See, I know him as the guy in the wheelchair from Oz.
Yes, that too.
And what else? And he's also in was he in Lost?
Yes,
or
yes,
no?
he was.
Yes, and also he's on that new show called From, the show, Michael, where they get people get stuck in this town and they can't leave.
Oh, yeah,
where the demons show up as like old dead people, and they just laugh. And if you get too close to them, they tear you to shreds.
Yeah, you showed me.
That sounds strange.
Oh, it's a really good show.
Yeah,
but anyway, so that's him. Another thing, I don't know his name, but the guy when he kills the mob boss, and the one guy that goes right away to leave and work for Frank, the one, I guess he's supposed to be like an Italian enforcer guy with the crew cut.
Mm-hmm.
You might not know him by looking at him there, but you'll know him now. Since that movie, he has completely covered his body in tattoos, and he has a shaved head, and he's always playing either usually Mexican gangbangers in every movie and TV show. He was in Breaking Bad. He was in Nip Tuck. He was in every show. If you need a tatted up Mexican gangster, it's that guy. But I think he's actually Italian, like in real life. And in this, I was looking at his face because I'm like, I recognize the face, but nothing else. So they have a lot of people that ended up becoming like character actors and other things. And so that scene happens. All the while, the cops are pissed that they think they can't touch them. There's basically 2 types of cops. There's the young hotheads who think they can get away with anything, and then there's the old-timey detective played by Victor Argo, who played the El Presidente in McBain. And he's going to try to catch him the old-fashioned way or the slow way or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Caruso and his other hothead cop decide at some point, they're like, how we're going to get them is we're going to show up with masks on and pretend we're a rival gang and just kill everybody because we can't arrest them.
Yeah,
and
that's
there's the big shootout at the drug party where a lot of Frank's crew gets killed, and the one cop grabs onto the side of their car as they're escaping, and so Frank's solution is steer him into a fire hydrant, and the way his head, you hear the cling and his body goes bang, and Caruso is just like, oh god, they all freak out. And the most memorable scene in the movie, I think,
nobody rides for free, motherfucker.
Well, okay, yeah. So yeah, Lawrence Fishburne is sadistic in this movie.
Yeah,
like crazy. Like I said it before, he's basically like an even crazier version of the does it hurt guy from RoboCop. They have a big cop funeral where every cop in town or the district or whatever is there, and Caruso goes to leave because he's crying because he knows that it was, first of all, it was his stupid idea to go on the killing rampage of all of the gangsters and drug dealers. He goes to his car and his car won't start, and he's crying in his car and swearing, and a limousine pulls up. You just think it could be any of the other cops or maybe like a politician showing up, and you just hear window roll down, "Hey you," from Frank, and Caruso turns his head and he blasts his head off with a double-barreled shotgun.
Yeah, that scene was like, holy shit.
That, I think, is the most memorable scene in the movie. And literally a sawed-off double-barreled shotgun. Hey, you, bang, head gone.
Wow.
And they just drive away, like they don't even speed away. They just drive a little bit faster, and all the cops come running down. They have no idea what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when that happens is when it's really the downfall, because Frank won't be able to control things. He goes after, I guess, like the Chinese triads and the Yakuza and anybody in town that's dealing drugs. And weren't they? It was heroin in like 60-pound containers of MSG.
Yeah.
And so the problem is he takes on too many people at once, and there's the showdown, with the I guess older detective, and in the talk back and forth before the final showdown that's going to happen with them, Franks has probably one of the more memorable lines of the movie, and it's I never killed anybody that didn't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
And explaining that everybody he killed, and you think I'm so bad because I deal drugs and because I kill these people. And he lists all the heads of the crime families and people that he killed. And he's like, people that are, the guys in Chinatown he killed ran sweatshops and slave trade. Yeah. And then the mobsters that he killed, he goes like they were,
prostituting young people.
Prostituting minors and children. And he goes, I don't do that.
Yeah, I'm better than them. I don't do that. I don't put kids out onto the street hooking, Yeah, exactly. That is, to me, that's the most memorable scene.
And he's not dealing to children. And you realize when you watch it, none of his dealers were dealing to children.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, so he has his own moral compass in his own head that he thinks he's following, and he's crying, and he's like, I never killed anybody that didn't deserve it.
and it's weird because that like moral code even went to Jimmy Jump, because there's a point where Lawrence Fishburne's character Jimmy, he's going down to a fried chicken place to get lunch for everybody, and he sees a group of kids, and the group of kids gets yelled at by the store owner, and Lawrence or Jimmy's like, hey, don't you treat those kids like that. He gives the kids a bunch of money, gives this poor woman money to feed her family. He's like, hey, if you need more money, come see me. I will help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like the Al Capone sort of thing, right? He's giving back to the community that he's in. Although this seems a little more genuine in their own head.
Yeah.
But Lawrence Fishburne's death is pretty good. I was going to say, like when it's him. Well, first it's him versus
Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes, and just. He beats Wesley Snipes, and I love that he gets shot, And when Caruso shows up, he's laughing about his partner dying.
Yeah.
And it's so sadistic the way he's behaving. It was, you'd say it was over the top, but it was over the top to the point where you're like,
this guy's unhinged.
It didn't come off as a guy going over the top that it's overacting. It came across as a guy who really is unhinged, like you said.
Yeah. Lawrence Fishburne in that, when he's laughing and then he's like, kill me, you know. Yeah, it's that he lost his mind. He was in a huge amount of pain. That was great acting, I thought.
I mean, like, one of the things King of New York does exceptionally well is everybody at certain points gets a real moment to shine. Like, I'm honestly really surprised. How the hell did I never hear about this movie before meeting Alex?
Yeah, well, like it's the same thing that I said about the last movie. There's giant chunks of it that are very forgettable, and then there's more that's memorable about this movie than McBain.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still just chunks of it that aren't very memorable for whatever reason.
Yeah,
it's probably because it came out. There was like a 5-year period where a lot of these like neo gangster films were coming out, like before, like right around the time you had Goodfellas, but like New Jack City came out a year later, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like some people might not confuse them, but like think that maybe they're the same movie, or something to that extent, like because New Jack City came out and made like $50 million on the same budget, and King of New York made like $2 million or something. So I feel like if you're a big Chris Walken fan, you'll know the movie, or you might not know the movie at all, but you've seen maybe a few still photos from it.
Mm-hmm.
But or if anything, I think more people have probably seen memes created of the clip where he shoots Caruso than anything else, popping up like remixed into like YouTube videos or animated GIFs, or things like that. Like that's the only thing I can think of. There's a lot of meme worthy moments. Like it's not that often that you get to see Christopher Walken in full gangster gear, smoking weed and then doing weird dance moves to weird funky jazz and rap music,
sniffing a dead man's leather glove.
Yeah. That was the hell.
I'll tell you, and that party, when they go to the party when he's out, it's the way it pans, like like you said, it's very like calm and relaxing. Like it's just a party where there's people like doing cocaine. There's a girl smoking weed, hopping up and down on a guy's lap,
mm-hmm.
but he's asleep, and they're fully clothed, and then people just like sort of swaying a little bit left and right, and then Christopher Walken's dancing with his lawyer girlfriend in the weirdest way possible.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's like doing the Elaine dance from Seinfeld.
Yeah, I can't even do the Walken impression though, like that whole "what's in the cup," and then Lawrence Fishburne's "it's root beer."
You want some? No, I don't.
A man has to have his limits, or something like that. That's what he says. Like,
yeah.
What the hell, man? What is this? Is this? It had to have been like Christopher Walken just riffing. I don't know.
And it's so odd. Like it has the weirdest energy for a gangster movie, but again, it's worth watching for sure.
Oh, 100%. Like honestly, out of the two movies we've talked about tonight, McBain and King of New York, one you should really consider tracking down is King of New York. I don't know if it's available to stream anywhere. There is a Blu-ray.
It has been in the past, and it is available on like all these different home video formats.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, so this is a movie you should probably track down if you want to see Christopher Walken do something other than popping a watch up his ass or going Biz. This is definitely that.
Well, this is the first movie that he did with that director, but after that, they did a movie called The Addiction together,
mm-hmm.
which is a black and white vampire movie from 1995.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to watch that.
Okay,
starring Lily Taylor, Christopher Walken, and Annabella Sciorra. And Edie Falco, who is the
Edie Falco, wow.
Oh, okay.
Edie Falco's in it. who else? They did that together. Then a year later, they did The Funeral, which is a crime drama mobster movie starring Christopher Walken, Chris Penn, Isabella Rossellini, and Vincent Gallo. Oh, and Benicio del Toro.
Weird.
And then after that, he did a movie with him called New Rose Hotel, which is a American cyberpunk erotic drama starring Christopher Walken, Willem Dafoe, and Asia Argento.
Oh my God! So guys,
and then they haven't done another movie together since. And I think the last theatrical movie he did was Our Xmas which is a movie that is an Ice-T movie.
Oh my Lord!
So yes, but they did like 4 or 5 movies together in a row, all theatrical. But this was, I guess, the more
mainstream
known one of those even though they like. Look, he was getting a lot of interesting actors together that wanted to work with him. But we'll probably go back and do more Abel Ferrara movies from his past. He did Fear City.
Exterminator? No, am I thinking of... sorry.
Miss 45. Driller Killer. He did the pilot for Crime Story, the TV show, which is a fantastic show, by the way. He did Cat Chaser. So he did a bunch of movies back then. But yeah, I don't really want to watch Body Snatcher though. Not that version.
Oh yeah, I please don't watch that. Like even the 1970s one, at least it has Leonard Nimoy and it actually is decent. But go back
it has that memorable scene.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But if we ever really want to go diving into like the deepest recesses of the worst dumpster fire movies of all time, though, he did direct one of the worst movies of the 90s, Dangerous Game, starring Harvey Keitel and Madonna.
Oh God, I might have seen that.
You know what? We should do a movie, a double feature where we pick singers or musicians that have transitioned into acting for one reason or another.
Okay, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to torture you both. I'll make you watch Fire Down Below, the Steven Seagal movie that also has like Randy Travis in it and I think Chris Christopherson.
No.
We haven't touched a Seagal movie on this show yet.
If we're going to go ahead.
I was going to say, we're not going to do any of his direct-to-video movies because that's just too painful. If we had to do his movies, it would probably have to be that and Glimmer Man or something terrible.
Yeah, so we will be talking about a lot more cool stuff in the future because me, Alex, and Aaron are able to get together a little bit more often now that all our schedules are starting to line up. I know we'll be back on Future Imperfect. These guys are going to be doing a Trek year in review because I'm still a few months behind. But after that, lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, because I think, we want to get that done before the new Trek is starting to roll out, I think, in February. So
yeah, February or early March, I think.
Oh, right. Picard season 3.
Oh boy.
Well, okay, let's try to be optimistic. I mean, I know, as a teaser, I know that you were a little upset with the last couple episodes of Prodigy, but we can get into that obviously in the actual recording. But I do think as a preview, I think last year's Trek overall was pretty decent considering what we had. But anyway, yes. So
I think
plenty of good shows coming up, man.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be a fun year.
I think,
and this is a good way to start because it's been. You realize since the three of us did one of these
before my surgery or after my surgery,
it was like January or February of last year.
Oh my God.
Maybe when we did one.
I know. Me and Aaron did a bunch during the summer because you took your time off, which is great.
Yeah.
But then, I got busy with school and volunteering. So, I mean, you're going to expect a lot more. I think Alex has prepared the soup du jour for next time. I think we're going to be talking about American Rampage and Action USA, both of which I know nothing about.
And then after that, something we've talked about doing for a while, which is the Snake Eater trilogy.
Yeah.
The Lorenzo Lamas action extravaganza. And then after that, we've got plenty of ideas that I've popped up. Michael, you've got ones that you've been pitching. We've all got different styles. So, some of these are going to be obviously talking about specific movies that we watch. Some of them might be pitching our own movie ideas.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of really fun stuff, guys. 2023, we're going to knock out as much possible content as we can because I will be probably having surgery again this year. But now that I know what the healing process looks like, I can do a lot more. So we will be doing all this and more right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. So as we begin to wrap things up here at the Twig video store, we definitely invite you to Be Kind Rewind. If you want to give some of our lovely service clerks around here some little bit of feedback, you can do that by going to feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can also reach us out on Twitter at ThisWeekInGeek for as long as that platform decides to exist.
And we do have Mastodon, which has a couple posts that I did, but until Twitter completely disappears, we probably won't be updating it that often.
Yeah, I have a Mastodon profile. I think I've used it like a few times. I also have Hive, but that's a whole kettle of fish, I hear.
Well,
so
Hive only works for Apple devices anyway, so that's not really useful.
Yeah, so who gives a shit? So either way, guys, we will always be around. Me and Aaron and Alex look forward to hearing from you guys. We're really glad we can introduce you to some new and fun movies. Like I said, please check out these movies where you can. They should be available to stream or to buy across a variety of home video formats.
I'll tell you right now, McBain, the main movie, I don't believe is on the service, but
it's on YouTube.
McBain with the riff track is on Tubi TV.
Yes, Woo. So please consider watching that. It'll be fantastic. Also, I think by the time this airs, you should hear my interview with Enrique Couto, where we talk about Freddy's Nightmares television show. Me and Alex should be back on the main show this week, talking about all sorts of fun things. So either way, guys, we're going to clean things up here. Be Kind Rewind. So for This Week in Geek, we have been from the city of Kitchener.
Alex, the producer.
From Lansing, Michigan.
Aaron.
I've been Mike the Birdman saying we'll catch you guys next time right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Get off the fucking car, man! You motherfucker! The motherfucking car, man! Oh, shit! Nobody rides for free, motherfucker!
Are either one of these any good? Sir?
What?
Are either one of these any good?
I don't watch movies.
Quick! Change the channel!
You're wasting your life making shit! Nobody cares! These movies are terrible!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
Hey, Dirt. I thought I told you, buddy. Nobody wants you around.
Hey! You're talking to my guy all wrong. It's the wrong tone. Do it again. I'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron.